longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship turns 22, and we're back with a brand new season of YoungTurks Voices from the Valley. This year, we hit the drop zone near the front line of the AI revolution to get a glimpse of the metamorphosis from pilots and proofs of concept to large-scale deployment. Joining us today are two AI enablers for enterprises, Shanker Trivedi, who joined Nvidia in 2009, and Uniphore's Umesh Sachdev. Shanker Trivedi joined Nvidia in 2009, has played a key role in setting up and transforming the chipmaker's data center business into its cash cow as it drives the AI revolution. In India, Shanker has led Nvidia's sovereign Gen AI push, liaising with the government and leading partnerships with business groups to set up AI infrastructure in India. These days, everybody is a client of Nvidia's, but let me introduce you to Umesh Sachdev at Uniphore, one of Nvidia's clients and a company that's focusing on conversational AI with 1,500 clients globally.
Hello and welcome to Voices from the Valley. We're here to kick off our 10th edition, and joining me now is Shanker from Nvidia and Umesh from Uniphore. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us here on the program. I have to start by talking to you about the shock and awe story of Nvidia, Shanker. I mean, today the most valuable company in the world. For most of us, the big breakthrough moment as far as generative AI was the ChatGPT moment. But for you and for the folks at Nvidia, I mean, when did you start to think that this was on the verge of an explosion?
So, first of all, thank you very much for the time. And the valuation is just the score, is the way we call it. So we are all about playing the game. And our game is accelerated computing and building a platform. So for us, generative AI is the killer application among other applications for accelerated computing. And so, we've been doing deep learning since 2012. Jensen, presented to OpenAI the first DGX in 2016. So that's a very, very long and deep involvement with all of the ecosystem associated with generative AI.
So no overnight success, which is what people sort of suddenly, where did Nvidia come from? To the layperson, I mean, it's just a phenomenal story that's taken shape in the public perception over the last few years. But there's a lot of work that's gone in over the past 2 decades in building it out to be what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working on this for many years. We always work with all of the developers and all the research laboratories and universities, all of the startups, small startups as well as mid-size and large startups, and all of the global research centers, global capability centers, and major ISVs. It takes a long time to build a market.
It does take a long time to build a market. Umesh, let's talk about what is faster, leaner, better now at Uniphore, since we're talking about what generative AI can potentially do. I mean, how has life changed for you at Uniphore?
Well, first of all, great to have you back in Silicon Valley, Shereen. Much like you were talking to Shanker about these things are not overnight success. I founded the company, hard to believe, 16 years ago. We've been at this for 16 years, and sometimes I meet customers who think AI was born after the GPT moment.
Right.
But some of us have been at this for a decade and a half and more. But what's truly shifted in the last couple of years, which has been truly profound, we today serve some of the biggest companies, not just in North America, but around the world. These are large banks, large telecom companies, large retail companies who've been using AI, but now with Gen AI, what's profound is AI is now a boardroom topic. It's being discussed in every board meeting in a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
Wall Street is measuring companies on their AI strategy, and the stock prices are being shifted up or down, depending on what companies announce. And for that reason, CEOs and CIOs are now singularly responsible. A lot of the customers that we've been dealing with, prior to GPT, AI was being bought as part of a software as a service application.
Right.
Something in marketing, something in contact center, something for sales. Now AI is an infrastructure that no company can ignore not having within itself. And for the last couple of years, we've seen tremendous traction. Matter of fact, we grew our top line a little over 60% last year, which was an acceleration from the previous year, and we're seeing the same trend continue now. So I'm seeing an insatiable desire at the C-suite around the world about how do we become AI natives? How do we keep our sovereignty when it comes to AI? How do we not share our data with somebody else? And what kind of internal tools and technologies do we need to make this all happen?
You know, sovereign AI is an interesting aspect, and I'll get to that in just a second. But when you talk about the fact that this is now a boardroom conversation, when we talk about spending, you know, what have you seen incrementally in the past few years in terms of the spending on AI, and what do you believe that could be in the next few years?
Well, that's a very interesting topic. McKinsey says that in the next 5 years, there's going to be $5 trillion of AI spending that enterprises around the world will do. And they're going to do it at the back of a $20 trillion value creation, whether it's savings or efficiency or things like that. And we're beginning to see early signs of that increased budgets. Some of the biggest Fortune 500 customers that we have are dramatically stepping up their spending on AI this year. Last year was a lot of pilots and POCs in Gen AI. This year, people have identified a few areas.
So we have moved beyond pilots.
We have moved beyond. But what's interesting is while we are seeing an increase in AI spending, the overall budgets of these companies are still constant. So it's still coming at the cost of either a cloud spending or a software spending or, in some cases, headcount spending. So AI is the one that's getting the accelerated spending, and then other places of the business are funding these areas.
So Shanker, let's talk about it from an enterprise perspective and, you know, what you're seeing in terms of adoption. I know you have an acronym for the industries that are actually the early adopters. Where are you seeing the most use cases today?
So before we do the use cases, the interesting thing around budgets and savings is I always urge all of our enterprise customers to focus on two things. First of all, where can you save money, especially in data processing, because data processing costs are quite high. And by accelerated computing, which is the Nvidia way, you can actually save money. So that's the first thing. Second important thing is, you know, out of all the projects that people should choose, basically the one I urge everyone to choose is go for the highest ROI project, even if there's some amount of risk, because AI is still in its early days. And their projects are going to fail. And so I urge people, even if there's a likelihood of failure, you're better off going for the highest ROI, so that even if you fail, at least you've learned something that you can, you know, put back into the business.
And that's important insights for people who are watching. But, you know, you were talking about the early adopters as well. Where are you seeing most traction today?
So, I mean, obviously, healthcare is a huge area because, you know, accelerated computing and generative AI can actually help you screen molecules, discover personalized treatments, you know, embedded in medical instruments. And of course, the cycle is long in terms of, you know, the consumer experience, the patient experience, but obviously, you know, the flywheel is going very, very quickly. In financial services, we are seeing a huge amount of adoption because payment processing is you know, the challenges around fraud and KYC and AML can be better detected using generative AI. Financial trading companies, even though they're very secretive, they're using generative AI in their trading strategies. So financial services, telecom, which is also, you know, a huge contact center, costs and, you know, cost of running a call center is very, very high. Generative AI can basically, you know, can do the work of multiple call center agents using generative AI. So these are some of the really compelling use cases. Almost all of them that I'm mentioning are in production. And we're seeing a lot of momentum.
I thought you would bring up automotive. We're right across the road from Tesla Engineering. I thought you would have brought up automotive as well.
You know, every vertical has got a lot of momentum. I mean, obviously, autonomous vehicles, autonomous robots, self-driving buses, cars, taxis are all a very big area. And actually, this combines not just generative AI around the traditional, you know, text type of use cases. You get mapping, 3D, you know, so generative AI is not just text to text. It's image, video, chemicals, and so on, you know, transforming one to the other.
Sorry, Umesh, you were saying.
I was just saying, I want to add to that. NVIDIA and us, we worked with some customers together on some of these applications. So a lot of people ask, where are the use cases? What's the ROI? Is this real? And to make some of the examples that Shanker picked real, let's take a telecom example, which is a common customer of Nvidia's and Uniphore. We went in 3 years ago, first thinking through their contact centers. They have 26,000 people working in their contact centers, both in the US and Chennai in India. Today, they've got a GenAI application live on every single seat of that application. They're saving about 20 seconds a call.
Okay.
So if you say, what's the big deal? GenAI brought some efficiency, 20 seconds in a call. At that scale, that's $110 million of savings that this telecom company is experiencing. You spoke of automotive. What comes to mind, one of our customers in India, one of the oldest motorcycle brands, is using GenAI in their showrooms with computer vision when people walk in to use analytics, and they've actually improved conversions of sales for about 12%. Another example on financial services, one of the biggest insurance companies in the world.
Right.
So think about any one of us who's traveling on a highway or a freeway, have a flat tire, and we do roadside assistance. We have a real use case. Today, roadside assistance is not just a call and asking for help. If you actually have to process a crane or somebody has to come and help you, you have to run a claim right away. And that took time. Today with GenAI, we're handling in this company over 70% of their roadside assistance that the AI is able to process right away. The customer gets the help, company saves tens of millions of dollars. So as these use cases are emerging, and as these results are being taken back to the boardrooms, that's when people are gaining the confidence of saying, now let's find 10 more areas in the business where we can have a similar outcome.
You know, since you talked about the evolution of these use cases, let's pick up the example of contact centers. And there are many CEOs at this point in time who are sort of calling the obituary of the contact center as we know it today. Now, how do you respond to that? Because this is the sort of the fear associated with many other sectors. But, is it going to be the end of the contact center as we know it today?
What's really interesting, Shereen, is in the 16 years that I've been CEO, and we've served a lot of contact centers around the world, probably the number of times this prediction has been made outdates the number of years we've been around. But I will say what's truly profound now is today we have over 15 million workers who work in contact centers. And by the way, it's growing at 9% CAGR. So in the next 3 years, we could have somewhere between 18 and 20 million workers. But the impact of GenAI can be imagined in the following way. I think of it as a pyramid. Think of the top of the pyramid. GenAI is likely to cause some amount of call elimination. That if AI is so good, you and I should not need to call a call center. AI should predict that there's going to be an issue and proactively offer a solution. So that takes away the need for a call center. So next 3 years, could we imagine 20 to 30% of these calls being eliminated? Sure, technology is good enough now. Then let's come to the middle of the pyramid, which I call call deflection. This is where chatbots or voice bots, stuff like ChatGPT and many other solutions are causing another deflection away from a human contact center agent to AI, another 20, 30%. Now let's look at the bottom of the pyramid. So even in the next 3 to 5 years, despite this mature GenAI with us, we still think there's going to be 40 to 50% traffic that will need an empathetic voice on the other side, a human being on the other side. But even that human agent will have a co-pilot now. And the co-pilot is making them another 20, 30% more efficient. So is it wise to predict that sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, of the 20 million people who work in contact centers, close to about 50, 60% because of efficiency of AI, they are likely to get either disrupted or they should find other jobs? That's one way to look at it. But the economic impact is real, but it's not a zero-sum game. It's not where one should say that in certain sectors or certain industries, we will not have a call center, or we will not need paralegal people in the legal profession, or we will not need nurses. Is automation around the corner? Yes, I call it the age of abundance. We'll all have more time at our hands. We'll all be more prosperous. Companies will increase their profitability, but the same people will be needed to train these AI models.
So let's just extend that argument. And Shanker, when Nvidia talks about the fact that we're at the start of a new industrial revolution and that the traditional data centers are now going to become the AI factories of the future, I mean, what does that evolution, what does that transition mean? What are the implications of that?
So the first thing that all of us need to understand is when we say generative AI, the computer is writing software. The computer is creating molecules. The computer is doing document creation, summarizing. So in that sense, it's producing output. And the output has a value. In fact, today there's a price per million tokens for different AI systems. So we are basically saying that all of the generative AI applications, all of the data centers need to be thought of as an AI factory. And in a factory, basically the raw material is data, and then you use some processes like your models and RAG and so on, and the output is intelligence of some sort. Intelligence that goes into a robot, intelligence goes into a software process, intelligence that goes into all kinds of workflows and processes. And each of those, that intelligence has value, and its value is going to increase over time. So, an AI data center or an AI factory needs to be thought of and managed in that sort of way.
How ready are enterprise customers today to move to AI factories? What are you picking up?
Some, the earliest adopters, the opinion leaders are already there, and they're building these factories, especially on the hyperscale side of things. I think that very soon, large enterprises will be, creating their own domain-specific large language models of some sort, and treating this operation as a factory rather than a cost center.
So, this cost arbitrage argument, and that is one of the arguments, the early arguments for the early adopters really to move on to digitization or AI. As you pitch to clients today, what is it that they're asking of you? What are the demands that are being made to say, okay, we're willing to spend this kind of money, but what do you do for us with what you bring to the table?
What's really interesting, Shereen, is while I said there isn't a single customer, a single enterprise where the CEO or the CIO are not curious, but the degrees of maturity varies. As we look at doing business around the world, and our customers are in 20 different countries, we find that some of the larger enterprises in North America are probably 8 to 10 months ahead of the rest of the world. And that's merely because they started this experimentation cycle probably ahead of the rest of the world. There is tremendous appetite even in Asia. Everything from Middle East to India to Southeast Asia and Europe. We're seeing this appetite across the board. So the spectrum that we find, there are customers who found that they've chosen the first couple of areas where they want to do the cost saving, they want to do the in-house small language model fine-tuning, and they want to create IP using their own data such that they can differentiate themselves with a peer insurance company or a telecom company. They want to start either in contact center or sales. Or there are other customers who come to us and saying, do you have a consulting team? We probably have a wide, a spectrum of ideas. We need help in building a roadmap.
Right.
What should be our first 3 initiatives? When should we step up investments? How should we report back to our shareholder group in our earnings calls? So it's a whole spectrum of customers. Some are really sharp and already mature, and some need different types of help. And what we are finding is we are actually structuring ourselves to help as many customers in all different ways that they want us to. So for the first time, as a product company, we've created a consulting offering. I never thought we'll do that, but that's the need of the hour. Some of the most powerful CEOs in the world say even, a big 4 is not able to give me that sense. They understand my business.
Right.
They're not in the science of it.
Yeah.
Umesh, your company understands the science, help us build a roadmap. So it's all sorts of cycles that we are seeing play out around the world.
Well, speaking of cycles, and what is interesting about the way that Nvidia is operating today, you're working with just about everybody, and with other AI players as well. And you say that you're a platform company and you're a computing company essentially at this point in time. What's been the big learning there, and how do you see this ecosystem building itself out?
I mean, there's so many aspects of the ecosystem, but for your listeners, I think one very important example is this whole build out of sovereign AI. And every single nation, think about India, so many different languages, all of those need a language model just like, OpenAI's language model. And so that's very important. Data needs to be if your language is your culture.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to export your data, your language, and import your culture back. So you want to create a local culture, domain specific, within your own nation, your own state, your own local area, sovereign AI implementations. That's
How receptive are governments at this point in time? I know that Nvidia is having conversations with the government in India, and talks have been underway, but how responsive are governments to the idea of sovereign AI?
Extremely risky. I mean,
And is it more driven by national security, or what are the
I think
considerations?
security is I don't think it's national security from a defense sort of perspective, but it's national interest from your culture and your business processes and your local laws and so on and so forth. And what India has done with the India Stack is really quite amazing.
Yeah.
And it's enabling all these digital businesses. And each element of the India Stack can be accelerated with AI. Every single element, from the identity to the commerce database and the languages in between. So I think that's a tremendous opportunity then for startups to get engaged, for national laboratories to add value, and so on. So
Yeah, but when we talk about sovereignty, and you talked about digital public infrastructure, and we've got that layer done in India, what else will it take to be able to build this out in the way that you just spoke of?
So, I mean, in India, there are two things. One is India for India.
Yeah.
So use the India Stack to drive local implementation, local startups, both addressing the large consumer market and the huge business side of things. Then there's a second piece, which is India for the world. And you think about, all of our global systems integrators like TCS, Infosys, et cetera, as well as the global capability centers. I think there's 800 of them that we're involved in. All of them are creating value in India for the world. Startups and companies like, Umesh's Uniphore also addressing that. Because India has this huge base of intellectual capital, of technical skills capability, and the skills is growing exponentially. And we've been training over 100,000 people in India just since I was last there. So it's an explosion of skills being imparted to this large body of engineering talent, which can enable India for the world.
So from an Nvidia perspective, you spoke about talent. You've got 4 centers in India already. You're talking to the Tatas and Infosys and Reliances of the world. But the role and relevance of India as we enter this AI era, what do you see the role that India will play outside of just providing talent?
No, I think that in the old model was you'd bill by the hour. Now you're going to bill for the output of the AI factory. That's the key point. So people will automate, and enhance a process using AI, and you'll export that process. And I'm pretty sure the business models in terms of how customers are going to pay for it are actually going to change over time. Because once you're in a factory model, you can actually bill by the unit volume instead of billing for the hour, right? And imagine if your employee is so much more productive, how could you possibly have a low hourly rate? It makes no sense. So, a whole bunch of business models are going to change as a result of this, new way of doing business with an AI factory. Now, it does require one thing, and that is really good AI infrastructure locally.
Yeah,
right?
and that's not that easy to get by at this point in time. I mean, there is a supply-demand mismatch. What's the wait time as far as Nvidia chips are concerned today?
The lead time for a full data center is significantly long. We're talking 6 months, from the time you place an order to the time, and that's really fast. Most times it'll take 1 year from the time you place an order to the time you turn on your AI factory or AI data center. And so, lead times, irrespective of the amount of demand and supply, the lead times are going to be long.
And the costs?
The costs, in terms of the throughput, the output per watt, per outcome, I think the costs are going to go down over time because the models are going to get better and so on and so forth.
So Umesh, both those India, the importance of India and what you're trying to do as far as AI in India is concerned, and the change in business models that Shanker was talking about and how we're likely to see that play out.
So let's tackle the second one first, the change in business models. Look, we are seeing this across the board. Companies that have hundreds of thousands of employees and spend millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars on SaaS software, we are seeing an upheaval in both of those economics. The upheaval of the software stack as we knew it. If you think about what gave birth to the SaaS revolution 2 decades ago, this was about a CIO saying, look, I have the budgets to spend on technology, but you as a company outside of my premise can build this software much faster, much slicker, so I'm going to use your software and pay you by the seat. That assumption in itself is being challenged because the same CIO now wants to develop an in-house fine-tuned large language or a small language model on their own data. And now with AI agents, that large language model is not just an FAQ or a frequently asked question area. That large language model is doing some workflows. So the need for the app becomes slimmer, number one. Number two, because the app was being priced per seat,
Right.
now there are areas of the economy where number of seats are going to shrink because AI is making businesses more efficient. And so we are seeing a major upheaval and an economic shift that is occurring around us as we speak. The next few years are going to be a big transition here. And the companies that execute this well will start to report an increase in free cash flow or profitability in their quarterly earnings. And the other companies who don't do it, their stock price will be sent down. Now coming to the role of India in all of this. We ourselves, we were a company that was born in India, in the IIT Research Center in Chennai. We went back last year and opened our first AI innovation hub outside of Palo Alto in Chennai, in the IIT Research Center. Because like Shanker said, for our customers, if Uniphore has to be their enterprise AI partner, giving them everything from the platform as a service, along with the applications where AI can be consumed in contact center or sales, they require us to scale really fast for them. And for us, the scaling is both the Nvidia infrastructure, we run on a lot of the stack that Shanker spoke of, but also the talent. And there, India becoming the AI talent factory for the world, there is no doubt. There are not many countries in the world that has the skill talent for AI, for the sophisticated models and fine-tuning and things like that, and the amount of people who are being trained every year on this. And so I think India, both as an AI factory, but as an AI talent factory to the world, is playing a significant role. And we are a great example as a company of leveraging our roots back in India to scale up our global operations.
Yeah, I would imagine that we're going to see that play out for not just you, but for many, many companies. Shanker spoke about that as well. You know, Shanker, we've been talking about AI and generative AI specifically as being an accelerant, as being an enabler. But let's also talk about the disruption that it's going to cause. I mean, you know, it's a nice way to put it, efficiency, but at the end of the day, we're talking about people, we're talking about jobs. You know, what is it going to mean? If the last big shift of what we saw with the cloud, you know, how different is this going to be?
I mean, every time there's a new technology wave of innovation, going back to the steam engine or the automobile, obviously people's time is freed up, and new activity starts to happen in the economy. So if there is people get more time as a result of AI delivering huge amount of productivity gains, then it's extremely likely that that time will be used for creating new economic activities and creating new value and higher GDP, for sure.
Well, that's the hope. But, there is a downside as well. I mean,
Yes.
if these bets don't pay off.
No, I mean, obviously, each individual case will be different, and obviously some people will face a skills challenge. They've got to relearn themselves, and everybody should be a learning person, a learning machine, so that as things change, you learn new skills. You used to ride a horse cart. Now you need to learn how to drive a car, right?
Yeah.
And I think the analogies are very similar in this AI age. We all have to learn new skills. Now, obviously, some people will lose their jobs just as in other cycles they did. But I think the role of society has to be to look after those people and offer the opportunity for those people who want to reskill themselves and address the new challenges.
So how are you seeing competition at this point in time? I mean, clearly, you've got 90+% of the market, but there are others who are now looking at getting into the chips business and hopefully bring down the costs as well, so that this becomes there is deeper penetration. But how do you see competition?
I mean,
and what big tech is doing?
we partner with everybody.
Yeah.
So even if they want to, in some areas, be competitive, we want to be their partner in a large number of spaces. So that's our position. And the market, especially at this point of time, is growing. And so
What is your expectation of how large the addressable market could be over the next few years?
I mean, if you think about AI as, instead of being an IT problem, instead of AI being just IT, if you think about it as pervasive everywhere, then it's the whole global economy. All of healthcare all of government, right? All of telecom is addressable using AI. The question is, what's the business model? Now, notice some companies will address different parts of that ecosystem. And so we actually, instead of competing, we want to actually collaborate with more companies in the ecosystem to really build out this AI, this new AI industrial revolution.
And that involves also making bets on startups, which is something that you're looking at.
We love working with startups. I mean, we have thousands of startups in our program in India and globally. In fact, we disproportionately put more resources on startups and developers and researchers than we do on enterprise.
What do you look for when you're looking at betting on a startup, investing in a startup, collaborating with a startup? What do you look for?
I mean, basically, we look for the opportunity to make our platform useful, to help the startup be more productive, to help the startup address new markets, to solve these hard problems that startups want to solve. Any startup, by definition, is trying to solve a hard problem. That's why they started the company.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we want to be involved with them.
Umesh, let's talk about the road ahead and the opportunities that you just spoke of. What is that going to mean now in terms of ARR? When we last spoke, you were targeting $1 billion. What's the plan on that front? And what about a possible IPO? I know that you've always said if the conditions are right, you will consider that possibility. Are the conditions right?
Well, Shereen, I'm sure you're seeing the US markets as much as we are.
Yes, it's hard not to.
Well, I think with the interest rates being where they are, et cetera, we are seeing software multiples, except companies like Nvidia and the top 5 or 6 companies in S&P. So clearly, conditions for tech IPOs aren't ripe. That's why we haven't seen too many in the last couple of years. As far as Uniphore is concerned, I think in 16 years, I've seen times where we were the only ones talking about conversational AI and some dedicated partners like Nvidia supporting us. Right now is the most exciting phase. The whole world wants AI. Everyone's become my competitor. Some deals we compete with the hyperscalers, and other deals we cooperate with them and they partner with us.
So are you excited or are you afraid?
Well, I'd say this is a much better phase of company building than being at the lonely end where we were the only ones educating the whole market. We've actually seen our growth accelerate in the last couple of years, and we're continuing to assume that to be true for the foreseeable future. So speaking of accelerated ARR journeys up to $1 billion, we are staying the course. In fact, if anything, I'm pushing my team to see, because of this wave, can we get there faster? And once again, going public is going to be it's not the destination.
Right.
It's going to be a milestone. On our board, we have people like John Chambers. I want to build this company for a very long period of time. And so there'll be a time for that milestone. Once again, it's market dependent. There are stuff that we don't control. But right now, we're working with companies that we never could have imagined. We're working with customers who are, way bigger than us, and they're bringing us into their boardrooms to make presentations about how we're going to help them with their AI. We're working with partners who are willing to go the distance with us. And people don't realize this. Nvidia and us, we've been working for the last 5 years, way before the Gen AI wave was hotter.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's partners like Nvidia who, like Shanker said, really put their energy behind supporting companies like Uniphore to become the next generation of Cisco's or Oracle's, et cetera, because they realize if they grow the ecosystem, they grow with us, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. You grow the market, to Shanker's point. But acquisitions, you've done a few recently as well. Is that going to continue to be part of the strategy?
Well, I think even more than the past, now that we are playing across the enterprise AI stack, we help companies develop platform tools, which allows them to do their in-house fine-tuning of these models. We help companies do RAG. We help companies with our AI applications. And so our vision has expanded in the last couple of years dramatically. What that has also done is, coinciding with my vision expanding, the market's pace of demand to me has also increased. And so the biggest challenge I face right now is how quickly can I deliver that vision to the CIOs and CEOs who are really excited about working with the Uniphore, but we are not there yet for them in certain areas, et cetera. And so that's where the inorganic strategy comes in really handy. I have a lot more areas of the stack that I need to think about. If there's an interesting company out there who's not scaling as fast as us or doesn't have the scale of Uniphore and the investors of Uniphore or the number of customers, by us coming together, we can deliver our vision faster to our customers, and that company gets an accelerated scale. Now more than ever, I have the opportunity to look at the data stack. Because data is the fuel. Data is what these companies are thinking of using for in-house fine-tuning. But just like we heard in the cloud revolution that there are cloud native companies and others who are going to transform to cloud, we're going to start to hear this term AI native quite a lot. There are companies like across the road Tesla you mentioned, which I count as AI native. For the last decade, they've been arranging their AI and models and data with a view that someday they're going to push for self-driving. Most of our traditional old industry customers, insurance, banks, telecom companies, they are not AI native. They are waking up to the opportunity and they're realizing that data was never structured in a way that these LLMs could very swiftly learn from them. And so that's opening up new opportunities of technology to bring in such that their unstructured data can now be quickly transformed in a way that LLMs can learn. And those are areas that we're doing a lot of in-house work, but we're constantly looking at what's out there in the market as well.
Well, speaking of what's out there in the market, I want to go back to India because June was when you were supposed to deliver to the Hiranandani Yota data centers. Has that happened?
It's all there.
It's all there?
They're open for business.
Open for business.
We got a team there right now, actually, as we speak, making sure that the first customers are onboarded well. And I'm super excited. And I believe that many more AI data centers will be established by Yota and our other partners in this endeavor.
You know, how exciting, yes, but how large is the India opportunity as far as AI?
Well, I think there was an article in the, I'm not a, I don't
No, just on the back of the conversations that you're having.
But I just saw an article in one of the leading business newspapers which said there's a giant data center opportunity in India, and companies like AWS and Microsoft are investing massively in building out their data centers in India. So it's super exciting. I mean, I think that the key thing is we all know from the India perspective, infrastructure matters. You don't build half an airport. You don't build a two-lane highway. You don't build half a bridge. You need to build an AI data center in order for the whole ecosystem to benefit from this generative AI revolution.
You know, I want to ask you, Shanker, what is the question that you're asked by companies who are looking at starting the transformation journey to AI, to generative AI? What's the question that you get asked the most, but what is the question that you believe they should be asking?
Yeah, the question they should be asking me is, how are you, NVIDIA, making it easier for us to create and deploy these AI applications that you talk about? And we actually been through a lot of pain, and that is why we came up with this new thing called Nvidia Inference Microservice, NIMS. And NIMS are magical because you can package up the whole workflow into one secure container and run this NIM anywhere. You can run it on your local AI data center. You can run it on your own servers internally. You can run it on a PC that has a NVIDIA platform in it. Literally anywhere around the world you can run these NIMs. And we've made it really easy for customers to build these NIM applications. And we put all of that knowledge on ai.nvidia.com to basically accelerate the adoption of enterprise.
Well, you know, on CNBC, NIMS is meant entirely different thing. Net interest margins are what we track quarter after quarter for banks.
Nvidia Inference Microservice.
Completely different story. NIMS, yes. Thank you for that.
They're like M&Ms. They're really easy to eat.
It doesn't sound very easy, but you know, you were talking about how you've managed to not just collaborate and compete at the same time, and to build out this ecosystem. What does it take within the culture of the company to be able to do that? Because it's not easy.
Yeah. So the first thing is you have to genuinely like to work with the ecosystem. You have to wake up every morning saying, I want to be friends with you. I want to work with you. You know, if you start out by thinking they're the enemy,
other guys want to be friends with you.
It doesn't matter, because if you show them love, they're going to respond. And especially the way we work, we work with the developers, we work with the ecosystem. I think that approach works.
Clearly it is working for now, but do you think that this, you know, as you get bigger and the others also try to play catch up, do you think that the love will continue?
Because actually we are a very small company, really. I know the valuation is high, but in terms of number of people and our approach and our whole culture, we are actually a very small company. So I believe that we can continue to have that mindset and culture of serving the ecosystem and working with the ecosystem.
So outside of NIMS, what's going to be the thing that you're most excited about coming out of the NVIDIA stable?
NIMS is going to be very, very significant. The other thing which I think Umesh also spoke about is, if you think about it, every single software company and every single business will have their domain, their company-specific large language model of some sort. It may not be a text-to-text model, because some of the companies make chemicals and refineries and hydrogen plants and so on. But there will be these very domain-specific generative AI large language models deployed in almost every single company, and for sure in every single software company.
Umesh, what are you most excited about? What's happening in the back room at Uniphore today?
Well, what we are really excited about, I'm going to repeat what I said a minute ago. There were years where it felt very lonely, beating the AI drum. Every single enterprise in the world is ready for their AI stack. They are doing their in-house modeling. AI sovereignty isn't just a country issue, Shereen. It's a company issue. Every single bank, every single telecom company thinks about sovereign AI. They think about not sharing their data with a cloud provider or a search engine provider. They want to do things in-house. And that's opened up opportunities for players like Uniphore who've been partnering with them. We've established a relationship with 1,700 enterprise customers around the world. And as the shift of Gen AI occurred, we were at the decision-making table with those CIOs to say, what are the new sets of tools and technologies you will now need to accelerate your way into these Gen AI? So the fact that our workflows are already deeply embedded, the fact that we were working either in some department like a call center or sales, gives us the license to now spread across the enterprise. And this is stuff that we've always dreamed of. Now the market, the real wave, has caught up.
Well, speaking of waves, and I know neither of you are forecasters, so I'm not going to ask you to put a number down, but over the next 5 years, with all the opportunities that we've spoken of, with the kind of growth and momentum that we've already seen, what would you put down as the mega shifts, the mega trends that you're going to be watching out for?
I mean, the trend that I'm watching out for is how many of the software companies embed AI in their offerings, how many what's the build out of data centers in every single region and country around the world, because we believe that all of the new data centers will be accelerated. There's obviously, we need to make sure there's enough energy and power, especially clean power available in all of these places. So those are the trends that I'm looking at. I also look at how many people are skilled, because skills matter as well. And AI creates the skills, but the human being has to express the skills. So skills development is going to be pretty critical.
Umesh?
I look at for the trends of the clue to come from Wall Street. If I look at Nvidia's valuation and the premium they're getting, what is it telling me? It's telling me there's an insatiable hunger on Wall Street for real AI native assets. Nvidia's clearly taken the lead. But if you think about whether it was the internet revolution or the cloud revolution, we saw post the internet, companies like Google or Facebook or Salesforce, which are household names today, they emerged from those transition points. AI is going to be no different. Watch out for the next large cap companies emerge, which are going to be AI native because of what we're seeing now. We are in the infrastructure build out phase, data centers and LLMs and early adoption. But in the next 3 to 5 years, there are going to be a few breakout AI native companies, and I'm positioning Uniphore to be one of them.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck with that. That's an audacious ambition to have, and we do hope that you deliver on that claim, Umesh. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much. Shanker, before I let you go, what do you believe will be the chief constraints for this story not to play out the way that you've just articulated it?
I think, there's two things. One is the amount of power and space, which could limit the amount of computing. And more important, I think this is one, because that one is more controllable. The more important thing is the skill side of things. Are people going to be able to do it, make the NIMs as easy as I'm saying? Are all the global integrators going to be able to deliver to the enterprises? Are all the global capability centers going to do amazing work to accelerate this adoption? I think those are the constraints.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck with dealing with those constraints, but more importantly, leveraging the opportunities that present themselves. Thank you so much to the two of you for speaking with us here on the 10th edition of Voices from the Valley. It's been absolutely educational to get a sense of where we are headed in this AI era and what we could be looking at over the next few years. Thanks very much for your time. Well, we are going to take a break here on Voices from the Valley, but return with more conversations. For now, from all of us, goodbye and many thanks for watching.